Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are going to take a look at the triangle conjunction coming up on November 3rd, connecting in a triangle alignment between Comet ISN, the Earth, Mercury, and the Sun. Now, as we approach the alignment, I've been asked, what can you expect to see? We're talking about all these celestial events and plasma discharges from the Sun, but what can you physically see? I've been asked that question, so I'm going to tell you right now. This video is going to encompass these 5 different points. Stronger auroras, noctilucent clouds, an increase in frequency of sprites or upper atmospheric lightning, radio signal interference and disruption, and stranding of animals that use magnetic field lines to navigate. You'd also want to take a look at the LASCO C2 images. You'll start to see more jets and filaments pulling out of the right side of the Sun, which is actually the western part, as the Sun spins in the opposite direction as the Earth. Look to the right side or the western side. You should see a lot more activity from that same exact area because that's where the comet is coming in from. So that's the first key. The LASCO C2, always notice that there'll be something pulling out of the west or the right limb. A quick look at the orbital diagram without the lines drawn. You can see the exact flat plane that we're talking about. Now there will be more charged particles coming down through our magnetic field lines. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. The charged particles actually stream in. Now these charged particles normally only come from the Sun. One direction, if you will. With the comet off, creating this triangle formation, the comet will electrically connect to the Sun and then connect back to the Earth along our field lines. So we're actually going to have 2 lines of current coming in, if you will. I've noticed a pattern with the auroras over the north pole of our planet. Heavy intensity of geomagnetic storms seem to center themselves over North America and Canada. Now, if you expect there to be a double electrification coming in from 2 sets of electrical bodies, I would bet that the electrical disturbance and internet connections that will go down first on our planet would be in this specific area here. And there's several examples. Again, it's always in the same place. Notice that. Watching off the western limb of the Sun or the right portion of the Sun in this LASCO C2 image, you would expect to see more coronal mass ejections flung in this direction as well. Now, if we look at the conjunction of Comet ISN over the north pole of Mars, notice the time date stamp on these images from LASCO. Look at the coronal mass ejection, that plasma filament that erupted the exact same days that comet passed over the north pole of Mars and created a coma. Now here's the interesting thing. We have some pictures from amateur astronomers of this coma forming over Mars, but during that same time the government was shut down in the United States and there's not even a single image, not even one image from a satellite to show this coma forming from an International Space Agency of this particular event. What's also to take note of is there were only 3 images released from the Curiosity rover during this Passover. This is one of the most interesting ones that I was able to dig out. This came from somebody as an unprocessed photo. During the government shutdown, these photos were released on the web. There were 3 pictures, and that is it. This one shows some sort of light beam or Birkeland current opening up, reconnecting back to the Sun. So that's what we get for all of our billions of dollars in the space program from around the world space agencies. A Curiosity rover picture and no pictures of satellites looking at the coma across Mars with the electrical interaction. I think they didn't really want you to see that because you're going to start putting 2 and 2 together just like I do by using the simple orbital diagram provided by JPL and Solar System Scope. Every time you can find planets that are in alignment, you could theorize that if there's an electrical current from the comet itself, then it would energize those field lines, especially in this T-junction that I said on the 19th through the 21st would have some electrical phenomenon happen on our planet. Again, let's take a look at the timestamp on the LASCO C2. This is a CME that was Earth directed during the exact same day of that T-junction alignment on the 19th and 20th of October. Notice how that flared out and came directly at the Earth. Now in the western quadrant of the Sun, you'll notice the yellow circle. That's where you would start to see a lot of energy emanating from lines, filaments pulling out from the Sun to connect to the comet through a now visible Birkeland current because it's more energized and that plasma is actually allowing you to see it with your physical eyes. Down where the circle is, that's where the comet will actually pass up and around the Sun, so you will definitely notice more activity in that area. Here are 2 examples of what I'm talking about. Notice on the 21st and the 26th, those 2 plasma filaments coming out and drawing toward the comet. And as the field lines continue to connect to Comet ISN, what you would expect is more electrified space, if you will, connecting to our planet. And I think that happened during the 19th and caused the internet blackout of Time Warner in that same area of the United States. If we do look at these blackouts that have occurred in North America, the Northeast American blackout of 2003, notice where it's at, same place as the internet blackout. If we jump back in time and we go back to 1965, the Northeast American blackout is the same. And if we talk about the Canadian blackout of 1989 caused by a solar storm, they all seem to emanate and focus over the same area. Another sign you would look for is radio blackouts and radio disturbances as the X-class solar flares start to interact with our own atmosphere. This did happen on October 25th, and radio communications were lost on the sun-facing side of the planet for 15 minutes. And as we enter this conjunction on November 3rd through November 8th, the comet should brighten significantly. As you notice, a quick look at Halley's Comet and Temple 1, the electrical emanations are quite visible from both of those. Well, it's actually with every comet, not just these two. The next thing to watch for would be with increased geomagnetic storms and more highly charged auroras. You should start seeing auroras in different places and locales across the planet that you don't usually see them much further south than usual. This would be a precursor. Now notice red. Red is more intensity. So if you're seeing red auroras down in Cuba, everything north of there would have either its power disrupted or circuitry would have been damaged. Another occurrence that will become more visible would be the upper atmospheric lightning. They're termed sprites. They're about 90 kilometers in the atmosphere down to about 30 kilometers, and generally you'll find them over electrical storms on our own planet. It's just a conduit between space itself down to our first electrical magnetic field. You'll start to see more of these right around the first and second weeks of November. You would expect that if everything's becoming more highly energized, sprites would become more visible. And if we take a look, they do sort of look like mythical lightning bolts and things that we've seen through history. Are we starting to see a repeat of this? Is this where their legends came from? And I'm starting to think that yes, we are about to repeat a 4,000-year cycle, and we ourselves will be carving things in stone because this is going to be such a special, incredible moment. Now, another thing you would take notice of that should start making worldwide news would be noctilucent cloud sightings. Again, it's just the excitation of nitrogen that creates the deep blue color, but with more energy flow coming in, these cloud areas should also be more excited and they should be more visible in the spectrum with our eyes that we can see as these plasma currents energize our atmosphere. And finally, for those of you that are viewing the LASCO C2 images to try to find some sort of pattern, notice that there's a missing 5 hours during the last event where the plasma current was coming off the western limb pulling toward the comet. You notice that the last image is around 9:13 and the next image we received doesn't occur until almost 1:30. Timestamp, where are the missing 5 hours? I actually want to see that. I want to see those images myself. You should be asking the same questions. And for those of you trying to understand the electric universe better and the possibility of free power existing around us that can actually be pulled from space itself, there's a great book called The Electric Sky. I highly suggest that you would take a read through it. Donald Scott is the author. And my final thought for today is take a look at the picture. You'll notice it looks like a dragon coming out of the sun. And in my first video, Comet ISN and Mercury's electrical phenomenon, November 12th through November 18th of 2013, Return of the Mythical Plasma Dragons. These are exactly the types of things I'm talking about. But this will pull much further out to connect with Mercury as well as back to the comet itself. So these would be mini plasma filaments coming off. I'm talking something that's 60 million miles long that's going to be coming off of the sun at this time. So this is what you can expect to see beginning over the next 3 weeks. Take note and stay informed. Thanks for watching.